Lowe's knows how to help you get the most out of your store run. That's why members save more with My Lowe's Rewards. Earn points towards My Lowe's money on eligible purchases. Get access to member-only deals and free member gifts. Plus, unlock free standard shipping when you reach Silver Key status. So what are you waiting for? Join for free today. Lowe's. We help. You save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainer writer Jim Hill, and this is the podcast where we cover the latest Universal news, rumors, and history. And as always, I'm joined by Eric Hersey, and I know this is a couple of weeks after the fact, but we had talked previously on the Epic Universal Podcast about which ads we thought might show up on the Super Bowl. And so I have to ask, did you see the ad for, or what is it, Jurassic World Rebirth?
Jim, that's the thing about the ads on the Super Bowl. This Super Bowl was kind of lame, in my opinion. It was pretty much done after the first half, so I kind of dipped out a bit. So I did see a lot of the ads on YouTube after the fact, but I haven't caught this one per se. But you were telling me this wasn't too shabby.
Oh, no. The full ad dropped. In fact, I apologize, folks. It dropped the day after we recorded the most recent pair of Epic Universal podcasts. But the full ad with Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali, I think they did a great job of sort of reboot. I mean, I have to stress here that given that this installment of the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World series is directed by Gareth Edwards, who, for my money, did the very best new Star Wars film to date, Rogue One. So the fact that he's stepping into this franchise is like, oh, okay, this one's going to be worth checking out. But I don't know if you've seen any of the coverage in regard to Scarlett Johansson being a Jurassic Park superfan.
I did not know that. She is, huh?
Well, she evidently, as a child, she slept in a Jurassic Park pup tent in her bedroom. And so, and this is the thing, evidently, as they were making these movies, she would literally turn to her agent when a new one came up and said, call them, tell them, look, I don't have any problem getting eaten in the first 10 minutes. I want to be in one of these. And I want to say when they shot the most recent one, the Jurassic World Dominion, evidently they were shooting Black Widow on sets next door, and she insisted on a set visit. So I really, really, really want to be in one of these. And so she's finally in it. And
that makes things so much better. Like when you know an actress or an actor wants to be in a movie and not just there for a payday. I don't know. I prefer their performance. Everything is like up their game, in my opinion. So that's great.
No, I totally agree. But she also has perhaps the best line or the best moment in this trailer. There's a moment where they show the folks, as always, you got to get in a boat and go to the island where the remote facility is. And suddenly, as they're coming up to the island, the equivalent of giant shark fins appear around their boat. And Scarlett Johansson's character is like, what's going on? And the dinosaur expert on the boat this time is like, well, these dinosaurs are helping the mosasaur who are stalking and hunting us. And Scarlett Johansson has a line that I want on a t-shirt now. She literally says, none of what you just said is good. See, that I can use that in real life. I've encountered so many situations where none of what you just said was good.
As long as people aren't saying that to you, Jim, right?
Concept since birth. But anyway, and by the way, that comes out July 2nd of this year, so we're 123 days out. So Epic Universe opens in 83, and then 40 days after that we get Jurassic World Rebirth. So
yeah, no, that's lots to be excited for coming this summer. Get out of this darn winter.
Oh God, yes. Anyway, and of course, one way you can get out of winter is you can get on a plane and go to Florida.
There you go.
And by the way, someone who can help you with that is our new sponsor, Be Our Guest Vacations. And Planning your next getaway, like maybe to go to Florida? Let Be Our Guest Vacations handle the details. As a platinum level earmarked travel agency, they specialize in providing concierge level service for trips to Universal Orlando, the park on Hollywood, likewise the Disney parks, cruises, and so much more. Their experienced team take the stress out of planning. So all you have to do is enjoy an epic vacation. Visit beourguestvacations.com today to get started. And don't forget to tell them that the Epic Universal podcast sent you. So, all right, we now enter the news portion of the show. So, what do you got for me this week, Eric?
Jim, I don't know if this is going to be a new thing that's ever. This might be the first time ever on any of Jim Hill Media podcasts. Have you ever got news stories from a LinkedIn post before? Are you guys scurrying over on LinkedIn? Because I found a news story while I was on LinkedIn this morning.
No, I did not see this. All right,
Well, no, it's funny. It's that I followed somebody on the Universal team, I guess, or I'm connected with them, and they're looking for YouTube food vloggers. So they actually put out a post that basically, hellos, please share this opportunity. We're looking for foodies who reside in the greater Orlando area. So you don't need to be an actor, but you should be comfortable on camera. They want early submissions to show, but they're looking for people that are 21 plus to host a new YouTube series for Universal Orlando. So for all those out there, this is a very food-centric news portion because I have a lot of food conversation. But if you're in Orlando and you want to be part of the Universal team, that is an interesting gig. Jim, I don't know if I shared with you that the family and I, when we were staying down there last summer, we just kept on the informational channel, just loops over and over. And they made like these vloggers. They have the ride guys who do all the rides. And then they also had Siri or a couple individuals that would go and review. At the time, they were really promoting Toothsomes. But they kind of made their own like vlogger series in the Universal team. And they put that out on their YouTube channels and stuff. So I think this is a good opportunity for somebody who likes to eat a lot of food on company dime.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'd be intrigued to see who got this gig, and look forward to seeing the series. Though, to double back to Tootsums, did we ever get confirmed that the walk around characters were cut from that restaurant? We had that story a couple of weeks back.
I didn't see anything yet. Yeah, no, I don't. Anybody that's down there, maybe if you're applying for this job as a foodie, why don't you head over there and tell us if the walkarounds? I haven't heard. I haven't looked.
Okay.
But it'd be interesting whether you're on in Hollywood or down in Orlando. Let us know if you've caught up with any of those guys.
Yeah. I that's one of those things where it's like, God, I hope that story's wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
No, me too. But here's a story that I hope is correct, and that it is butterbeer season because, Jim, I have branded myself as a butterbeer fanatic. It's funny that I got more messages from friends and family about these butterbeer foods that are coming to the parks and or coming to the grocery stores near you. Jim, did you see that there are butterbeer crepes coming?
I heard about this, and first of all, again, I'm a diabetic, and so it's one of these things where it's like, great, another way to kill me. So I guess what's fascinating about this is the notion of, okay, so this means that there's going to be a place inside, obviously, Epic Universe, because again, the crepes are French, so
Right.
okay. But I'm just laying this out here. What if we did a crepe challenge?
Oh,
Think about it. When they added the Ratatouille ride at Epcot, they built that second street out behind the France Pavilion, which has La Crêperie de Paris, which Mr. Testa has enthused about the crepes they do there. But what if we say we start our morning over in Epcot, and then we get in the car and we drive over to Epic Universe, and we compare crepes?
crepes all day. Yeah,
well,
no,
there we go.
Listen, I had crepes. I've ate the crepes over at Epcot twice, and I get to sample almost a little bit of everybody. So we have a family of 5. We all get our own different things. So I've sampled probably all the crepes. There is definitely one that has like apples. Is very sweet and very good, and I don't think I even had crepes up until my experience to going to France over in Epcot. So I'm excited. This butterbeer crepe could just might be my favorite thing. So
Okay, and I'm probably going to kill myself trying to say this name because again we
I,
just did La Crêperie de Paris, but
yeah.
the butterbeer crepe is going to be offered, and again in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic land of Epic Universe at the Café L'Air de la Sarine.
This is when we need Jim Schul, who has spent enough time over in France during his days. He could hammer that out pretty good for us, I bet.
Well, here's hoping. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, meanwhile, we are in the midst of butterbeer season. Is this correct?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
butterbeer, butterbeer season. It's
Mhm.
what starts March 3rd, so just in a couple days here, and it goes all the way through the month. So March is butterbeer season. But
Mhm.
a few things that you're going to notice with butterbeer, they have butterbeer carts will be popping up around the U.S. That was interesting because it's not really confirmed what that means. Are we
Wow.
getting them in grocery stores? Like, I mean, I'm hoping there's one in Wheeling, West Virginia. If not, I'll just make my own. And
Wow. Because I again having the nice people at Universal,
right.
I had a front row seat to what was going on when they were inventing butterbeer, and then started doing all of the little spin-off products, and so for them to actually putting carts out in the world with the understanding that the cold butter beer is actually a two-step process.
Yeah.
You have to pour it into the mug, and then the foam on the top is a separately added ingredient. So it's like, wow, if they're putting these carts out in the world, that's a two-step process.
Yeah, and I gotta wonder what that even means. I don't know but if there's one that comes around, let us know. It says the popular butterbeer truck will be visiting multiple cities across the U.S.
Okay.
So we'll see. I'm hoping if there's one near Pittsburgh, I will definitely make a trip. That'll
Okay.
save me a lot of
Okay.
miles
Hmm.
to do that. But other places that you definitely can get. So there are goldfish from what Pepperidge Farm. There's going to be goldfish butterbeer. Um, like flavored graham, so they're like they're not necessarily the cheese, but they're the like
Okay.
graham cracker type thing. So those are coming out.
Hmm.
There's also Hershey's Harry Potter Butterbeer Kisses. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry. I didn't say that out loud, did I?
oh,
That,
Jim, no.
wow. Oh, oof.
This was the one that friends and family all sent me, and even some
Mhm.
people on Twitter. Is that
Yeah.
the fudge strip cookies? The elves, the Keebler elves. They
Mhm.
have butterbeer cookies coming that way.
Mhm.
And I'll give you the ooh on this because I don't think I'd care for the Skinny Pop butterbeer flavored kettle popcorn. I don't know if I'd deal with that, but
I'm I don't
you
know how I
intrigued?
feel about this. I mean, the weird part of it is that they'll concede is the only place you can get butterbeer is inside of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And even with the new flavors, whether it's the butterbeer ice cream or for that matter, the crepes we were just talking about, you gotta go into Epic Universe. And
Right.
this is
Jim, I don't think they're going to be worrying about attendance
all right.
because of this year, right?
Okay. All
I think
right.
there's more
Duly
reasons for
noted.
people to come besides the butterbeer, maybe.
Duly noted. Okay, so now speaking of food and the Universal parks, we had a sneak peek in the past week. In fact, specifically focused on food that's going to be offered at Epic Universe, right?
So many pictures, Jim. We weren't necessarily there to try it all, and I'm kind of next time around, guys. We'd
Hmm.
like to try some of this food.
Right.
We'd be your foodies.
Also, Mr. I want to stress here, Mr. Testa, and what a boy, Chrissy Harrison. At
That's it.
front of
That's
the
who we need.
line. There we
Right.
go.
You know,
Okay.
we could do a crossover. If she got to do it, she could tell us all about it.
Absolutely.
So there
Absolutely.
is a list. I'm going to tell you right now. This is an audible. Like we're talking here. We're talking
Mhm.
about all the food. Might not be the greatest. You need to go seek out a blog, see the
Mhm.
pictures. But I was interested in more talking about some of the food locations that
Mhm.
they're having there. So whether we just kind of go down some of these and talk about some of the locations in Epic, we haven't talked about those, and I didn't see much coverage yet. So I think
Mhm.
this is their time to shine. So
Okay.
Celestial Park, which is our entrance land, right? There is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Blue Dragon, which is
Mhm.
Asian, and I don't know if
Mhm.
you've seen that. There's also the Atlantic, which is a Victorian aquarium themed restaurant. Not really sure what that means.
Well, what is the name of the place that's in the San Francisco section of
Is it Langford's or something like that? Is it?
I mean, that has a very aquarium themed vibe. I don't know. I'm intrigued by the Victorian though.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that'll be interesting.
All right.
There's the Oaken Tavern, which is a barbecue spot.
Oh, okay. All
That looks
right.
good. And then the one that I've seen the most of, because I think it's the one with the most clever sign, is
Mhm.
Pizza Moon. Have you seen
Mhm.
that? I guess there's a lot of vegan opportunities, but it's Pizza Moon.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You can enjoy your pieces. I'll be over at the Oaken Tavern. Okay,
All right.
just
All right.
closing a few heart valves with the barbecue platter.
Well, there you go. Well, that's Celestial Park. So that's pretty. There's 4 different, and there's all types of. I mean, we're talking 12 different dishes that you could see right now. Now we've seen some of this, and maybe we've talked about it because this is. They have this over in Hollywood, right? The Super
They
Nintendo world.
do. They yes, and they're just like they will in Florida. They have the Toadstool Cafe. In fact, I think Len and I were talking about the Bowser's Fireball Challenge, the 1 pound
Yes.
meatball, and
Yes.
it's like, oh, and again, I say this is the guy who's like, ooh, I want to go to the barbecue place, but on the other hand, 1 pound meatball, and it's like it does come with a complimentary defibrillator, right?
Right. Right.
Keep
No,
that handy.
I think that is. If that's probably where my family's going to want to eat. This is the most. It seems like there's something for everybody, but that'll be fun. Then when we go to How to Train Your Dragon, the Isle of Berk, they have the Mead Hall, which I appreciate a ton now.
And the interesting thing is if the concept art for this is correct, and remember, if you've been in the Leaky Cauldron over at again Universal Studios Florida, that's a huge space. It has high ceilings, and
Yes.
to pull off the mead hall, they're going to have to do that. But on the other hand, the Thaw Fest platter where I can get drumsticks and grilled salmon. Somebody want the salmon? I'll roasted veggies. I'm like, but grilled salmon. Oof. No.
Well, this is very Viking food, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay,
But,
okay.
on the other hand, though, we get to Dark Universe. So this is the one that I think will be pretty fun. Is Daw Steakhouse, which
Mhm.
I think was you guys making the joke over on the dish that you can't get garlic in one of these?
I have heard that. Yeah. I mean, I'm also kind of intrigued by the notion of when you're in this restaurant, there's supposed to be like Dracula's familiars in there that you're supposed to be able to interact with people who know the monsters. And it's like,
Yeah, and same with the
okay.
Burning Blade Tavern, which is I believe that is the building that actually has the fire effect, right? Is it the windmill? And it looks great.
And by the way, I have so been enjoying. Folks are getting shots of that fire effect at night, during the day. Everybody's like, "Oh, look at that!"
Now this is it's pretty fantastic. I get more excited every single time I see one of the flyovers from Bio Reconstruct or some of the
There you
pictures.
go.
It's
There you go.
fantastic.
Who, by the way, again, has been doing great work these past couple of weeks as they are rushing to get this place ready for its May 22nd opening.
That's it. And we're gonna final it out. We already talked about the Café de la Serene and the butterbeer crepes, but there's also another place to eat, which is the Les Gobelets Nord. I took Spanish in high school, so forgive me, everyone.
I took French. They were trying to teach me a language, and sadly they would not accept Pig Latin, which I was fluent in. But but Le Goblet Noir. So what is that? The black glass. It's like, wow, great. You could clean it before you gave it to me. But look at this. We got an alchemist platter. We got smoked sausage, potato, and cheese pierogies, pickled
Ooh,
eggs, beets, onions, pretzels with mustard and cheese fondue. That sounds very charcuterie.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
the thing I got to ask is as long as they have some type of chicken nugget or burger option for the kiddos in all these restaurants, we'll be fine. But I'm excited to kind of venture around and try what we can. Lots of places to eat. And I'm happy to see that they're kind of giving some of these restaurants some love in the press. So seek out pictures. There's all types of pictures. And if you're a foodie, your mouth will be watering.
And more to the point, if you're a foodie, you can have a job. So
That's it.
go check that out.
Like I said, very, very food related news portion today.
And now I'm hungry. Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, folks, hopefully you're hungry for us to finish that Jim Henson Universal Pictures thing series that we started and continued last week, and we'll be wrapping up today. But before we do that, we got to do this.
Love, exciting and new. Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever. It's a love.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships at Bermudan and British Registry.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
And we're back. Okay, picking up where we left off last time.
Some turmoil, Jim. Some turmoil.
Turmoil, yes. Okay, late spring, early summer of 1981. Very hectic time for all of the folks who work at the Jim Henson Company. And why is that? Well, first, April of 81, they begin shooting The Dark Crystal. Then, mid-May of that same year, 1981, they got a disrupt proceedings. Everyone's got to get on a plane to go over to the States because they're doing publicity for the Muppet Show, which is in the process of ending its 5th season in syndication. But then, all right, back on the plane, back to the UK, back to shooting The Dark Crystal. Okay, now it's June. Back on the plane, back to the States.
Oh, man. That's ruthless.
Well, but this is because they have to do publicity
Right.
for the Great Muppet Caper, which is beginning its run in North American theaters thanks to the talented folks at Universal Pictures. And speaking of the talented folks at Universal Pictures, they really pull out the stops when it comes to promoting this second feature-length Muppet movie. In fact, this is how they describe that production in the summer of 1981 issue of the Universal City News. I have a number of these in my collection.
What are those, Jim? Are those just magazines?
Do I have one loose here on the desk? They're actually an in-house newspaper that was distributed to Universal Studios employees to the effect of, these are the films that are being shot on the lot. These are the TV series. These are the new attractions opening at the park. So they're gold for me for these features in the show. But anyway, this is how they describe their new film coming out. And so they start off with, here at Universal Studios, we're used to working with legends, and we've been bringing them to American movie theaters for your entertainment for nearly 70 years now. And by the way, that whole 70 years thing, got to remember that Universal Studios was actually founded back in April of 1912. Oh. So again, 70 years. Blah, blah, blah. Sure. Okay, back to the article. Talking about working with legends. Take, for example, these legendary lunatics, the Muppets. Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, and the Great Gonzo, and the whole Muppet menagerie. They are hot on the trail of mystery and mayhem with the Great Muppet Caper. And then the setting is London, where someone has stolen a priceless jewel, the baseball diamond. And Miss Piggy has been framed for the crime, and unless Kermit and company can recover the gem, his love will spend the rest of her life in the pen. And it's like, and pig pen. That's good writing. That is pretty good. Okay. Anyway, in the credits section of this story in the Universal City News, it is noted that Universal Pictures will be distributing the Great Muppet Caper in North America. As for the film itself, it is a Lord grade presentation of a Jim Henson film. But here's the thing, Eric. The Great Muppet Caper, which cost more than one half the times that the money it took to make the Great Muppet movie. By the way, that was $8 million, so we're talking about $12 million.
Okay.
But here's the thing: only does half the business that the first Muppet feature film did when that was released to theaters back in the summer of '79. So we're talking about 32 million worldwide versus 65 million worth of tickets sold for
Wow.
the yeah.
Well, what the heck? Why the big drop off? It was 2 years at like
Well, the what's interesting, the folks at Universal after the fact were like, okay, maybe not the smartest move on our part to send this out into theaters literally weeks after the Muppet Show ended its 5-season run in syndication. There was a glut on the market that, in fact, in hindsight, they were like, what we really should have done is push this thing out 6 months, and that we should have sent it into theaters in December of '81 as our holiday movie. So it's like, well, we won't make that mistake again. So they make the decision to move the Dark Crystal from its original summer of '82 release date. And by the way, summer of '82 was an amazing time for fantasy films. In that 12-week frame from Memorial Day to Labor Day, Eric, we got E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tron, Poltergeist, Time Bandits, Conan the Barbarian, and Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
oh
And every one of those are decent fantasy films.
Listen, Jim, I don't know the end of this story, but I'm surely glad the Dark Crystal didn't open there because they would have got destroyed. Right? I mean,
It got pushed to December of '82, which, by the way, good thing, needed every minute of extra production time because Jim Henson, who, by the way, directed this with the help of Frank Oz, the very talented gentleman who puppeteered Miss Piggy and Fozzie Bear, they finish principal photography all the way back in September of '81, and they start cutting this movie together. And it's this point, it's like, Houston, we have a problem. What's that problem? We'll explain that after this.
This episode is brought to you by Nerds Gummy Clusters, the sweet treat that always elevates the vibe. With a sweet gummy surrounded with tangy, crunchy nerds, every bite of Nerds Gummy Clusters brings you a whole new world of flavor. Whether it's game night, on the way to a concert, or kicking back with your crew, unleash your senses with Nerds Gummy Clusters.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
And we're back. Okay, so picking up where we left off. So why was making the Dark Crystal such a creative challenge? Okay, Jim Henson's original creative conceit for this movie, Eric, he thought that the fantasy elements of this film were going to be so visually stunning that it wasn't going to be necessary for any of the characters up there on screen to actually speak comprehensible dialogue. So this is kind of a silent movie, except these creatures are talking in incomprehensible language.
Hold on. So he says, yes, we're not going to understand a darn thing they're going to say. It's basically watching a foreign film.
But they are moving with purpose, and the scenes are so well staged. Again, he's convinced that the puppeteering of these characters is going to be so clear, and the visuals are going to be so strong that the audience is just going to get where the story is going, just solely based on the action up on the screen. So no further explanation is necessary.
Jim, I didn't meet anyone in 1982, but I can't imagine they're that much different than people in 2025, and I just don't buy that that's possible.
Well, and as it turns out, you are correct, my friend. That Jim Henson's expectations all come crashing down in March of 1982 when they have the first preview of The Dark Crystal, which, by the way, Universal Pictures, sensing what they had on their hands, insisted that it be previewed as far away from Hollywood as possible. So that, and again, you got to remember, this is before there's an internet. Look, we need this to be very far away. We do not need anybody in town to see this and gossip about this. So they actually hold the preview in a suburb of Washington, D.C. And the first audience to view The Dark Crystal, first, Eric, they're confused. But then as the film continues, they start to get angry. They start to get downright hostile toward this movie because they can't figure out what's going on. And so the lights come up at the end, and there was booing.
Oh, geez, that's not good.
That's not good. All right. And you have to understand there's a contingent of executives from Universal Pictures in the auditorium. And Jim turns to look at them, and they look at him, and they get up and they leave without saying a word. And it's like, oh. And now, mind you, a day or so later, Mr. Henson definitely gets word. And the folks at Universal are unhappy. And in essence, what they tell him was, look, we got in business with you because we thought you were going to deliver another audience-pleasing commercial success, like the first Muppet movie. But first you give us a Muppet sequel that only does half the business of the first Muppet movie, and then you foist this thing on us, which in its current form is unreleasable. And this is, in a nutshell, what Jim Henson got told. It said, Universal Pictures wants a commercial product. And what Jim Henson has delivered instead is a $25 million art film, which, by the way, that's another bone of contention. When Universal initially came on board this project, the Crystal was only $13 million.
Okay.
All right. Yet again, remember, Great Muppet Caper was 12. And so the Crystal, it was 13. So it's all right. That seems reasonable. But due to Jim being a perfectionist and, again, wanting this to be visually compelling, the price kept creeping up and up and up and up. And so now suddenly The Dark Crystal is this $25 million epic fantasy that nobody can understand. So this is what Henson has to do. He has to, first of all, he's got to go off and hire a writer to write a script.
That's what real quick though, Jim, that's what boggles my mind is like, what did he hand them as a script? Did like it was like Chewbacca, or, in the script, it actually says what he is, but it's him mumbling. Like, I'm very confused on how they got this far down the line.
Well, you got to remember with fantasy films, you do a lot of storyboarding, and yes, there was a script, but the interesting thing is, I mean, for example, the Skeksis, the horrible lizardy creature things in this, supposedly the dialogue there was written in Egyptian.
Oh, geez.
And but there were words, and these are the phonetics, and this is the emotion you're shooting for, and this is the action, and this is what's going on. Where the pod people, for example, they spoke Polish, and so what now happens is that Jim's got to hire a writer to write a script of actual dialogue, which explains what's going on in each scene of the film, what each character, its motivation is and what it's going to do next. And then to add to the cost, you have to go out and find voice actors who now will read the script but have to sync up the dialogue to the already filmed puppet mouths.
This sounds awful, Jim. That sounds like a disaster. Getting booed, having to do all this back. It's already double the budget. My goodness.
All right. Now, what's worth noting here is that Jim Henson is not the first guy who's been forced by a studio to do this sort of thing. In fact, to circle back to Walt Disney and what happened with Fantasia, the film had been sent out into theaters with, remember, the Fantasound set up the first stereo sound and how expensive that was to do the equipment and that sort of thing. So we jump ahead like a year. And the folks at RKO are looking at how much money did we lose on Fantasia? And it's like, they go to Walt and it's like, we'd like to try to recover some of that money. But what we're thinking is that the only way we're going to do this is if we send Fantasia out into theaters on the bottom of a double bill. And by the way, because it's a double feature, this can't be 2 hours long. So we'd like you to go back into Fantasia and cut 40 minutes out. And then we'll send it out into theaters. I want to say they double billed it with a Western. And Walt understood, and again, RKO was his distribution. This was before there was a Buena Vista distribution company. And it was like, look, I have to do what you people tell me to do, but I can't do it. You cut it. I don't care what you do. Find the 40 minutes you want to cut out and cut it. I can't be part of this. It just hurts too much. But whereas Jim Henson, he didn't have that option, Eric. He had to deliver a film that they could release for the holiday season. And he got the script, he got the voice actors, and again, it was all part of an effort to make the Dark Crystal comprehensible. And by the way, it's worth noting here that yes, Jim Henson's efforts did pay off because in the end, the Dark Crystal went from the cinematic equivalent of a train wreck, which by the way, the folks at Henson themselves will tell you. In fact, Brian Froud, the gentleman who designed all of the characters, very famously turned to, and again, he designed the characters. He knew what they were supposed to do. And he turned to it and said, I don't understand what they're doing. So anyway, but now, thanks to this recovery effort, the Dark Crystal is today a well-respected fantasy film. And that said, when the Dark Crystal arrived in theaters in December of 82, again, a lot of audiences still didn't know what to make of it, because again, I'm here for a Jim Henson movie. Where were the Muppets?
Right. Yeah.
But that said, the Universal Pictures publicity department delivered the goods. They sent this thing out to North America with a great trailer and a great poster and put the might of the studio behind it. And because of that, it grossed $40 million in that territory, which, by the way, given the way Hollywood math works, wasn't enough to cover the cost of making and promoting the Dark Crystal. But then when you factor in what it made an additional $20 million overseas, and by the way, got much better reviews over there. It came close to recovering its production.
Yeah. I'd like to get myself a Hollywood math calculator to figure all that out, because I still look, to me, it seems like it made money, but hey.
Yep. All right. Now, okay. Now, but here's the interesting thing. A normal person, having come through what it took to finally get the Dark Crystal in theaters, would have come away from that experience and think, well, let's not do that again. But no, we jump ahead to April of 1985, and here's Jim Henson on the set of Labyrinth, about to shoot another epic fantasy for the screen involving puppets. And
I am so happy he's not a normal person because I love Labyrinth. It's one of my favorites of all time. So,
well, now speaking of which, did you see that just last month, and we're talking January of 2025, Robert Eggers, the director of Nosferatu, has been hired by Jim Henson's kids. We're talking Lisa and Brian Henson,
right?
To write and direct a sequel to
Are
Labyrinth.
you kidding me?
No,
that is breaking news to me, and I will have to call my sister who equally loves the Labyrinth, and we will book the tickets right away whenever it comes out.
Now, just one little bend on the Labyrinth story. Again, also cost $25 million to make. When that came out in theaters in June of 1986, only sold $12 million worth of tickets.
What?
But now what's interesting bend on the story. It was that film doing what it did at the box office, and then what happened the following year when Jim did the Jim Henson Hour, a Muppet show for network television that was canceled after 13 episodes. It was this 1-2 punch that effectively led to Jim going to Michael Eisner and saying, "Hey, you want to buy the Muppets?" Because it's like, I'm tired of being worried about money. I just want to create stuff. And Michael Eisner was like, absolutely, come here. I will give you $150 million for the Jim Henson Company, your film library, your television library, the characters, and we will do amazing things in the theme parks, and we will do great movies and great TV shows. And just when you think that they signed that deal in September of 1989 and Jim's gone by May of 1990, the what might have been if he'd lived, what we'd have in the Disney film library, what we'd have in the parks, just makes me crazy. And especially to us be recording the show in that window of time where we're about to lose Muppet Vision 3D. By the way, very last thing Jim Henson worked on before we lost him. And I mean, I know Disney said that they're going to try to find a way to bring it back into the parks. And yes, we are getting the Muppets on a retheming of the Rock and Roller Coaster, but it's not the same. I mean, I want that to be good, and I'm hoping it's good. Anyway.
Well, Jim, though, when it comes down to it, the real question came down to Universal Studios, the Muppets, right? And it doesn't sound like he had that much of a better relationship with Universal Studios. So Disney must have preserved it a little bit longer than Universal would have.
I guess so. But at the same time, again, if you look at the wonderful poster that there is for the Great Muppet Caper, the wonderful poster that we got for the initial release of the Dark Crystal. And by the way, also worth noting about the Dark Crystal, it got a prequel. I don't know if you ever saw the thing they did for Netflix in 2019, Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. 10 episodes long.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. It's one of these things where it's like, I feel like I watched that and it's like, now I'm ready for the Dark Crystal. I know what's going to happen.
That's what they needed. They needed that prior to, then they probably wouldn't have had to fix the whole language issues.
But again, I'm so sorry if I offended folks over on Patreon about not necessarily being a Dark Crystal fan. Jim Henson was honestly, and still is, one of my heroes. But yeah, that's the thing. You can love something that had a very troubled production history. I have a lot of films like that. I like The Wizard of Oz, which also had a very troubled production history. But that's not.
It's a beautiful film from looking at. I mean, I remember watching it years and years ago, but just prepping for the show today, I watched the trailers, and they have it in 4K now, and it was over on the Jim Henson Company YouTube, and you could watch the trailers, and it looks quite amazing, and I could see where the money went. But I can also see where I might not emotionally attach to the story as much. But I feel like I'm going to watch it. I might self-hate watch it. What's a hate watch thing, Jim?
What actually, what I've been thinking is I need to go back and watch. They did some wonderful behind the scenes, the creation of the Dark Crystal. And I'm not going to lie, those are actually more entertaining to me than the movie. But
there you go. I love the making of. So, Jim, thank you so much for our first trilogy, I think, over here. That was a good story. I never thought that, like, me scrolling through the Universal pictures and seeing the Muppet Caper and be like, hold on, would turn into, we got a really good, pretty much start and end of Jim Henson's career there and how Universal played in there.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, it was Eric who suggested this story, but we have another feature coming up. In fact, next week's show that keys off of a letter we got from a Epic Universal podcast listener who wanted to share some photographs of their family's trip to Universal in 1965. And led us to do a history of one of the stranger attractions at the Hollywood Park, which was the Ma and Pa Kettle Petting Zoo. But we'll get to that on next week's show.
Well, I'm excited about that one, Jim, and I appreciate everybody sending over, any comments and pictures and so forth. You can find me at Eric Hersey if you want to send over any show topics and so forth. What about you, Jim?
Well, let's be clear here that Eric Hersey on X and Instagram, right? And in fact, that's the same situation with me. I'm on X and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and then over on Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. So feel free to reach out anytime, folks. Like I said, we love to hear from you, and certainly, if you got suggestions for stories or stuff you want to hear about the show, we'll happy to take that. But anyway, that's going to wrap up things for today. So thanks for listening, and stick around to hear what's coming up this month over on the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. Thanks for listening to today's episode. And if you like what you heard, head on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. This really helps get the word out about our shows. We also have some other shows on the network that you might like. Each week, we drop a brand new Disney dish with Lantesta or animation and movie news. Please listen to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. By the way, you can also check out Drew's other podcasts, like The Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast, which he does with Charles Hood. For all things Lucasfilm, why don't you subscribe to Looking at Lucasfilm with Brian Gahn? Likewise, we have I Want That Too with the lovely Lauren Hersey, our weekly podcast that features the latest merch and the stories behind that merch. And our Epic Universal podcast takes a look at the Universal theme park. So please join Eric Hersey and I on that weekly. If you enjoy theme park history, we also host Manufacturing the Magic with Shelley and Noah Valladolid. That podcast tells the story of how we got the modern theme parks that we enjoy today. Join myself, Len Testa, and veteran Imagineer Jim Schul for our latest season of Disney Unpacked, our first ever video series exclusively for Patreon. These get released first Sunday of every month, and each month we release several exclusive podcasts to help support this video series. I want to thank everyone that supports the Jim Hill Media Network. For more information about our podcast and content, head on over to jimhillmedia.com. So that's going to do it for now, folks. Thanks again for listening, and we will catch up on the next show.